This is Season 6 of the Team Roping Journals podcast, The Score. With over 2 million downloads, this is where team ropers talk. Hey everybody, welcome to The Score. Today's episode is a bonus episode that we're recording during Women in Rodeo Month. And Women in Rodeo Month is the time that we honor the absolutely phenomenal contributions of women in the sport of rodeo. Our team is very dedicated to making sure that the entire industry recognizes how vital women's role is in the sport. And we are lucky to be cowgirls and to work in this industry and to have the support of so many people. And this is just an opportunity that we like to take to shine a big spotlight on the women who have made a huge difference in the sport of rodeo. And of course, very specifically in the sport of team roping, breakaway roping, barrel racing, and calf roping. So today's episode is with, if you're going to do an episode on an influential woman in rodeo, you can't possibly do one without talking to Pam Minick. I have wanted to have Pam on the podcast for about 6 months. Well, probably, I should say a very long time because I've always admired Pam Minick. But about 6 months ago, I was watching the Cowboy Channel, or I strolled through the living room and the Cowboy Channel happened to be on, and there was an NFR, don't know what year, it was from the 80s, and I heard a woman's voice commentating the team roping. Full disclosure, I wasn't around back then, so I didn't get to hear Pam, real time. There were probably lots of people listening to this podcast who knew Pam had commentated the team roping. I, however, did not. So I was immediately impressed and in awe of her abilities and just in awe of how much she knew about team roping. Not that I didn't know that she knew quite a bit about the sport, but I didn't know she knew enough to be Joe Beaver before Joe Beaver was Joe Beaver. So Pam, thank you, Pam, for appreciating what we do here at The Score, because I remember once upon a time back when the BFI first moved to Guthrie, and it was in June. It was in 2020 during the COVID year. I had kind of plopped down in a seat at the arena at the Lazy E, and sitting next to me was a woman and her husband and some friends of theirs. And I introduced myself and I said, "Hi, I'm Chelsea Schaefer. I'm so excited to meet you." And it was Pam Minick and her husband Billy, and I got to sit with them for the entirety of the BFI, and Pam can appreciate a great team roping as much as anybody. She has made the WPRA finals in the team roping. She was a Miss Rodeo America, of course, which we'll talk about here, and how that gave her a kind of a springboard into broadcast. She has been the vice president of the WPRA. She has such a massive list of accomplishments. She's a breakaway roper, businesswoman, of course, a wonderful personality, Billy Bob's Texas. There's so many. To introduce Pam Minick seems silly because I feel like most people that are listening to this podcast probably know more about Pam than I do. She's just a legend and a pro, and seems to be involved in so many different things that I get to be involved in now. It is absolutely an honor to work with the one and only Pam Minick. And so today's episode, we talk about her experience in the broadcast booth during the NFR, calling the play-by-play in the team roping, which I just admire beyond any words that I can express. So thank you so much to Pam for joining us on The Score today. Today's episode is brought to you by our Women in Rodeo sponsors, R. Watson Boots, Resistol Hats, and Mane and Tail. This is Women in Rodeo Month. We decided to start doing it in September. Especially, I would be lying if I said we didn't want to do it at the time when the season's ending and there's a lot of hype around women. But a lot of times we don't even know what the breakaway girls are going to be doing in December. We hardly get any information about. So that's why we started doing Women in Rodeo Month in September, to just kind of raise awareness of the profound impact of women in rodeo. And I text you 6 months ago, probably, or maybe longer. I don't remember, but I had texted you at one point because I was watching like an NFR from the 80s, maybe.
Oh, I remember when you texted me and you're like, I can't believe that you were calling the play-by-play.
I loved it so much. It was so awesome. Just, could you give me the rundown of how you got into that gig and like what you were feeling and thinking as you were commentating the team roping and giving play-by-play on the team roping at the NFR?
Well, I'll go back to how I got, you know, I mean, the way that I got into broadcasting in the first place, obviously I had been Miss Rodeo America, and then when they, in 1976, that goes back a long, long way, they were doing a rodeo called the Wrigley's Big Red Rodeo, live on CBS. I mean, this is when there were 3 networks, you know, so and the crazy thing is, also about, you know, you can talk about ratings and viewership and things like that. The ratings and viewership of rodeos on TV 35 years ago is probably triple or quadruple what it is now. But the difference is there were less choices. You know, you didn't have 400 channels. So it was not uncommon, even later, you know, when we went to ESPN and then some syndicated rodeos and even TNN, it was not uncommon to have 1.2 million viewers every single week. And now if a show gets 200,000 or 300,000 viewers, that's a lot for rodeo. So anyway, that's just a little backstory for you. But anyway, when they said, hey, we're doing this rodeo live on CBS, and it was Donnie Gay, Larry Mahan, Jim Shoulders, and myself, would you do the interviews? And I said, sure. I mean, I had no training other than the fact that I had been Miss Rodeo America, and I'd been on the other side of the camera being interviewed, but I knew the sport. I mean, I'd competed, you know, since junior rodeo days. So
sure, yeah.
And other than the riding events, I knew. I mean, you just, when you live it, you know it. It's like you don't have to be told what's going on in the bronc riding. You know it. You know, I mean, when you live the sport, you know the intricacies. So, and looking back, I think now I would be more nervous. Well, maybe not now, but maybe when I was, you know, in the middle of my life, I probably would have been more nervous if somebody would have stuck a microphone in my face and said, we're live on CBS. I probably would have been more nervous now than I was then, because what you don't know, you know, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Anyway, so my very first telecast of rodeo was live on CBS, you know.
Oh,
so,
wow.
That was kind of crazy. And then the next year, started doing a few more rodeos. That's when they had the Blair Pro Rodeo thing. That's that iconic photo of me and Tolman and Larry Mahan with Kurt Gowdy, you know. And so started doing those rodeos. And then in 1980 was when ESPN was formed. And we did about 8 rodeos a year then. And during all this time, I mean, I team roped probably as much as I ran barrels. I ran barrels in the turquoise circuit, and I was the turquoise circuit director and vice president of the WPRA. So obviously my biggest focus was on barrel racing from a competitive standpoint, but from a pleasure standpoint, I team roped. I lived there in Chandler, and Alan Bach lived across the street. Clay O'Brien lived down the street. I mean, it was real easy, and that was before there was a numbered system. So everything was about mixed ropings, and mixed ropings were a real big deal in Arizona. So I lived team roping. So when I started doing the NFR, when you look at the broadcast team, if you've got Bob Tallman, Hadley Barrett, Randy Corley, and me, I knew more about team roping than all 3 of them combined. So I wasn't really intimidated to give my opinion. And so anyway, so that's, I didn't even think twice about it. I hope I didn't make any wrong calls, but I felt like I did a pretty, you know, and truly team roping was kind of like it didn't get the spotlight that the other events did. And so to try to explain it to those that were watching, if they didn't understand, I didn't want people to think that just because you missed meant that you weren't good. You know, I wanted to give the reason why, and, on a headshot or a heel shot. So that's kind of how, it's a long story for how it came about.
I'm going to take a break right now to tell you about one of our sponsors, and that is R. Watson Boots. At R. Watson, they're called to pass on their rich heritage to future generations. It's not business, it's personal. It's their love of the outdoors, their endless dedication to craftsmanship and trade, their tireless devotion to putting people before profits, and it's who they are. And it's not easy, but it is worth it. R. Watson Boots was started by Randy Watson, who built a career over the last 40 years. He's led boot companies all across the industry, and wow, do his boots have some pops of color. They are high quality boots worn by people, some of our favorite legends like Larry D. Guy and Hope Thompson. And R. Watson Boots, you can find them more at rwatsonboots.com. Randy came to us because he was looking for a way to support women in rodeo in a bigger manner. He is passionate about women's sports, very passionate about where women fall in the grand scheme of rodeo, and he understands the need for women to have the kind of boots that will support them in all of their cowgirling endeavors. So learn more about them at rwatsonboots.com. I know that's why I called you, Pam. I wanted that long story because I wonder, you have certainly way more broadcast knowledge and way more background on the broadcast side of things than I do. Has there been another woman to call the team roping at the NFR since then?
No, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I don't think
I know that most recently Kate Harrison has done some of the play-by-play, and I think she did it at the American, so she might have done team roping, but not at the NFR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like as much as I could chatter about team roping with anybody on the phone or talking to them about it, but I think I'd be mortified to talk about it live. I don't think I'd be able to. I think it would be tough, I guess.
And that's when I look back, and I didn't even think about it until you brought it up. A couple of months ago when you were watching that thing, and I was like, oh, I might be more self-conscious now, but at the time, my focus wasn't on me and being, my focus always in any interview that I've ever done or the play-by-play is to make sure that I'm shining a light on the person, the subject, whether it's the roper in the arena or the person I'm talking to. So I don't even think I thought twice about it. Now I would be like, oh my God, was that correct? Because the last thing I want to do is have somebody say, I'm certainly not going to give a Walt Woodard breakdown of it, you needed his bottom strand on the ground. But I felt like I gave the audience a good explanation of why a guy, and I think one of those runs, somebody got flagged out for an illegal head catch, which, same type of deal. You want to try to explain it to people because, stuff happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. We're going to take a break here to talk about another sponsor of Women in Rodeo. That is Resistol. Resistol has been a partner of the Team Roping Journal and our sister brand, the Breakaway Roping Journal, since the start. Resistol believes in the role women play in rodeo as a legendary classic hat brand. There is nothing more legendary and classic than the cowgirl. And so Resistol has hats for every kind of cowgirl, no matter what arena you are in, no matter what your style, what your fancy is, straw, felt, every variety, every size, every type of hat that you could want, you can find at resistol.com. Now, has there been, since we're going broad in history too, has there been a iconic event or your most favorite thing that you have ever done, that you've ever hosted or done the broadcast for? Can you say a favorite?
I think doing one of the years that I did the NFR when it was still in Oklahoma City, I actually was in the arena calling the action live in the barrel race. And there's pictures of me, and if you look in some of the videos of those, 1978 or 19, I can't remember which years I did it, but I was down by the flagman, by the electric eye, calling the action of every barrel racer from in the arena. and I looked back at that, and I'm like, oh, my God, that was... But when you ignorant, like I said, ignorance is bliss sometimes, but I look back at that and I'm just like, oh my goodness, there's a picture of me interviewing Roy Cooper, and he had his son Clint beside him, and Clint was like about 6, I think. And Clint's a grown man now.
Oh yeah. With his own kids. Yep.
and my interviews were right there, on the arena floor, and, not in a, not where they are now on the side of the arena. They were right there on the arena floor as the rodeo is going on. And so, things have, that was before they tightened up all the security at the arena.
And there was a lot more room in the, in Oklahoma City to be in the arena than there is the Thomas and Mack. Yeah. True story there. Yeah. Now, what do you think has been the biggest shift for women in rodeo in your career? How do you think you've seen the woman's role in the sport change?
Well, obviously the biggest thing that happened, I think, was when barrel racers got equal money. And by barrel racers getting equal money and shining that big spotlight and having somebody like Charmaine James go 10 years back to back to back to back to back, just incredible, with on one horse, oh, by the way, and then come back and win it again. And then you have other barrel racers that really, it's obviously a crowd thrilling event because it's easy to understand. The fastest time wins. There's one penalty, so even the first-time rodeo fan can walk out of there feeling like they knew that what the heck was going on. But because of that, and because of the popularity of barrel racing, and because of the crowd appeal, that's where the breakaway got to be fast-tracked.
Yeah.
There's, you look at something to go from 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds. That's what breakaway did, but it wasn't all just because of the merits and the excitement of breakaway roping. It's because of the great foundation that was laid by barrel racing and the excitement of that event, I believe.
What is your hope for the future? What do you see as the next steps, Pam?
Well, I can't wait for the day that a woman qualifies in the team roping, and there's been some that have been,
Heck yeah,
close, but that would be. I know that there's several ladies that have made their circuit finals and even won their circuit finals, but from a women's standpoint, I always say to people when we talk about team roping that that it's skill rather than strength, and I think that women can compete heads up with a man in team roping. The only thing that separates them is the fact that most women have got 42 other balls that they're juggling instead of just loading up a horse and a rope and going down the road.
Amen.
And I think that's the thing that has kept women from getting to the NFR. I don't think that it's skill at all.
Absolutely. I cannot relate to that statement more, other than the fact that I also don't team rope at all. But I do relate to the 42 balls in the air statement. One more sponsor to thank for Women in Rodeo Month, and that is the original Mane and Tail. It's a hair care solution for longer, stronger, fuller, thicker hair. It is the OG horsehair product. I know that I had that for my first pony when I was a kid. Straight Arrow created the original mane and tail shampoo and conditioner specifically targeted for show horses with long flowing manes and tails. The formulas were outstanding, and soon the line took off with the equestrian folks. with one very important twist: the horse-to-human factor. Soon, the secret was out, and consumers everywhere were reaping the benefits that were so coveted by the horse owners in the know. The shampoo formula contains high lathering and ultra cleansing agents that are fortified with moisturizers and emollients to help leave hair soft and clean, followed by the conditioner that helps nourish and aid healthy hair growth, leaving hair looking lustrous and silky. These micro-enriched protein formulas help to prevent hair breakage and repair split ends, achieving the goal of longer, stronger, fuller hair. The results are unbelievable. There is still an underground rumor that mane and tail encourages hair growth. And imagine the rest is history. Find out more at maneandtail.com. That's mane, the letter N, tail.com. For sure.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, very good, ma'am. I appreciate you giving me the time, Pam. I've wanted to visit with you about that since I first saw it and since we first plopped down next to each other.
I'm going to turn the tables on you. So you didn't, when you first heard me doing that, you didn't laugh and roll your eyes?
No. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
No, I was so empowered immediately. Like I am so, well, like I said, I've never been a broadcaster. That's not ever been my game plan or part of my goals. And so talking on camera in general about, if you asked me to talk about the color of the sky, I think I would stutter. But team roping is something I think, which it's funny, we're like talking on a podcast about team roping that I talk on every week, but like I just ask questions. I don't make statements usually about team roping. And so the fact that you were owning it and kind of saying what you know, where as opposed to that is something that I didn't realize until I saw you do it, until I saw you saying what you know, how absolutely self-conscious and how little I actually say what I know to anybody about it. Like, when you and I plopped down next to each other at the BFI on accident, I could talk to you about team roping. Like, I could tell you everything I knew or spill useless team roping knowledge. But to do it where other people might be like, who does she think she is talking about team roping?
That's why I was like, so tell me the truth, Chelsea.
No, I didn't. I promise you, I did not think that. But that's how I feel as if I would feel about myself if I were talking about team roping.
Yeah. And team rope, even though I've kind of branched out into showing horses for the last 4 years, but team rope, I've got 5 horses in my barn that are all rope horses.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's still really my jam, you know. And now that I've been judged so much in these horse shows, I realize how much nicer it is to let the clock do the judging.
Right. Exactly. It's funny. And you're so much further along in your career than I am and have done so much more. I had Caesar called and asked me to be on his podcast, and I was like, me? For what? And he was like, Eric, we want you to tell team roping stories. And I was like, what? You don't care about my team roping stories. Like it's funny to have we play different roles for sure, as far as this industry goes.
And I think the more that you can pretend that nobody else is listening, the better you are. But, looking back, I'm sure that a professional like a Joe Beaver or, Walt Woodard or somebody like that would be listening to my commentary and going, that's not exactly right. But at the time, I didn't worry about that. So that's the good thing.
I love it. And, gosh, well, a good thing they didn't have Facebook or anything back then, too, because
they could really tear us apart.
They could be very cruel, but I think people are cruel enough to Joe as it is now. So I think they would have definitely torn a woman apart for sure. But maybe someday again they won't. Maybe someday there will be another girl who's not scared to be to commentate the team roping.
And I think if you live it, then and we've been really lucky when you think about. I don't know if you remember, like about 4 years ago when Lisa Lagasher was Miss Rodeo America.
Yeah.
And one performance at a rodeo, there was no team ropers, And so she, as Miss Rodeo America,
I
headed
remember.
a steer, and I can't remember who heeled for her. But, I mean, that's pretty damn cool. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
thanks for all you do, my dear.
thank you so much, Pam. I am going to. I believe my kids' carpool ride just tried to call me, so I think they are here. So I better go.
Okay, talk to you.
Thanks, Pam. Bye.